Hi, and welcome to week 12 of English 1302. I'd like to take a moment and visit with you about the life and times of Emily Dickinson and some of her poetry. Now, Emily Dickinson is going to be a lot different than Robert Frost. Robert Frost was very traditional. Nature's a source of wisdom, had much clearer themes in his poetry, and it was just pretty much clear poetry. Uh, and I don't say that in a derogatory manner. But when you look at Emily Dickinson, and I've posted the PowerPoint for you, I've posted a couple of YouTube links. So some of this you'll know, but I want to connect some dots for you. When you look at the poetry of Emily Dickinson, you really cannot say, well, she uses unusual capitalization rules or unusual punctuation rules in order to get a point across. Probably that's true, but we don't know. There's a lot about her we don't know. We know less about her than we know about William Shakespeare, who lived 400 years earlier. The reason we don't know much about the poetry of Emily Dickinson is this. When she wrote it just for herself. She only published two of her poems in her lifetime. Now, a couple of others kind of leaked out in heavily edited form, but she only published two poems, and her editor suggested she not publish anymore, and so she didn't. She wrote poetry for herself on these big homemade books called fascicles, and she asked that they be burned upon her death. Now, people who are a lot smarter than I am take a look at her poetry and say, wow, this is really great poetry. It's very deep. It has a lot of meaning in it. And I'm sure they're right. But again, we really can't be sure because she never meant for her poetry to be read. Robert Frost, he wanted his poetry read. He traveled wide and far, reading his poetry to different audiences, explaining poetry. He wrote books of poetry. He published them. He sought a mass audience. So we can assume that he wanted his poetry out there and to be understood, and he revised his poetry so that the reader could understand it. Emily Dickinson did not. Most of her poetry did not have titles because she wrote it for herself. Most of her poetry doesn't follow punctuation rules, probably because she wrote it for herself. So on all of her poetry, you're going to have to kind of read between the lines. You're going to have to read what the words say and then kind of figure out what she's meaning, what she's hoping to get across. And again, we don't know because she doesn't explain it, and there's really nobody uh, left alive who knows. But it is good poetry. It is interesting poetry. I hope you'll enjoy it. It's all short, very biographical, very auto-eccentric, meaning focused on the self. And I thought you might enjoy something a little different. So if you have any questions about the poetry of Emily Dickinson, let me know, and we'll talk later.